The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly Speaking podcast here. Old friend of the pod and activist Marc Francois. It's been too fucking long. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, man, it's been a minute, but I'm excited to get out here. We've got quite a bit of shit to go over, it would seem.
we got a lot to talk about. We were actually supposed to do a podcast a couple weeks ago, but then things broke down with the schedules, and of course, my family life here, of course, everything's all predicated on my kids allowing me to do whatever I need to do. But after what happened,
this only happens by the grace of your children and their permission.
This is the problem with summertime though too, because typically during the school year, when they're in school, it's gonna be awesome for me now this coming year when my youngest go to kindergarten. I'm gonna have the entire Tuesdays to do whatever I want in terms of podcasting.
Now you
know
got
what I mean?
two boys that are starting to have whole ass little lives of their own.
Yeah.
Where they're at the house for 8-10 hours a day.
Exactly. So I have the mornings and afternoons myself to actually record more than I want. You know what I mean? So, but I don't have that morning daytime thing right now because of them being home for the summer. So.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
It never quite made sense to me why my mom hated summer or was always depressed during the summertime growing up. But, now that I have friends with children, I totally get it. It makes perfect sense.
Dude, it's weird. Because, I used to, as a kid, love summertime.
Well, sure. What kid
and
wouldn't?
Now, between the weather now, it's so fucking hot here. And, it's so bad here with the weather in terms of, humidity and stuff. And it's been bad this year especially. And then, I love my kids to death, of course, but God, it's another chore.
Mm-hmm.
At school, come back, please. So
yeah. It's like the old Christmas Carol. It's like mom and dad can hardly wait for school to start again.
Exactly. So before we get to some of the topics we want to talk about here, you've done a lot in the last couple months. I guess. We haven't had a pod in probably at least 6 months, but not longer. What's been going on with you?
Well, I moved, so I'm back in San Diego now, and it seems the summer is igniting again, very similarly to 2020. And as usual, I'm right up in the thick of it. And then, of course, all the stuff that's going on with immigration and what's happening in Haiti and what's happening at the southern border as a result of what's happening in Haiti.
Right.
It's both a good and busy time for me to be in San Diego. And there's a lot to discuss tonight.
Yeah, you were living in Thousand Oaks, right?
Yeah, I was out there in the LA suburbs doing that whole thing, very involved in the LA activism scene and whatnot. And then relocated back to San Diego. Thousand Oaks was like my hometown and everything, but wasn't the right fit for me. San Diego is just a whole lot easier to thrive.
Here's a question, because you say you sold your house too and you downsized. Why did you do it?
Okay, so if we're being perfectly honest, I bought that house initially because I was getting engaged and I thought I was going to be setting up, picket fence life in the suburbs with my soon-to-be wife.
Right,
That has since not come to pass, and living out in the suburbs as a single guy with no kids is a pretty boring existence. I called it a prison of my possessions because I had a great little condo and everything. But it was a painfully quiet existence.
Wow.
Unless I wanted to get in the car and drive an hour to LA each way.
It was crazy because I remember you bought the house. I remember you being so excited about it, this and that, and whatnot. And
oh no, totally. I mean, sure, I was in love. I was getting engaged, all that crap. There was so much adulting happening all at once. But fortunately, I bought and sold at the right time, so things have worked out in that regard. And now we get to downsize, reset. I purged like 3/4 of my possessions. I went from, being a homeowner with a garage to, renting a room in a small apartment. So yeah, it was
how does it feel?
Several runs to the donation site and a whole lot of trash.
No, it's funny because I was texting you today when you said that. I was like, man, are you doing what I do now? Like, are you becoming a minimalist now?
I don't know that I'm becoming a minimalist because I still definitely have some of those first gen pack rat tendencies that were inherited from my family who lived through or in the immediate aftermath of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, for this chapter, this season, and certainly this summer, absolutely. It was bare essentials only, cut the wardrobe like down to a quarter of what it was, all that kind of stuff. And no, it's been amazing. I've been back in San Diego now like a week and a half, and America trying to flush itself down the toilet notwithstanding, I've been very happy.
So, wow, I mean, it's amazing. Like, I mean, you're an LA guy, but man, San Diego is your. I mean,
Honestly,
when I
funny
met you,
because
like,
well, and especially after spending the last 4 years in LA, like obviously the freaking Dodgers logo is tattooed on my chest. Like I'm
of
always
course,
going to be a Dodger and a Laker fan and stuff like that.
of course,
And LA will always be home. I have both day job and extracurricular work that will always keep me up there, both in Ventura County and in LA. Um, but living in LA is a bitch, man. And it's really not a very nice place to live. It's exceedingly expensive. It's crowded. It's dirty. It's smelly. The cops are
yeah.
violent. Like,
It's why I won't go there either.
it's not a great place to live.
It's why while I have family there, I have in-laws and stuff there. I refuse to go there.
Yeah. I was having dinner with some friends last night, and one of them grew up outside the United States and only moved here like 2 years ago. And she's extremely well traveled, been all over the world, to war torn places and luxurious paradises, all the same. And she was even commenting that she was really stricken when she first came to the U.S. as to like the prevalence of third world energy that we exude, that, the American image is definitely one that is representative of yesteryear, or is a highlight reel of what our rich people and nice neighborhoods are doing. But what is not illustrated is the degree of deprivation and disparity that exists in this country. And she noted was like really palpable from the minute she got here.
Wow.
Or at
Yeah,
least to
again,
live, not as a
right.
tourist.
Yeah, I mean, I'll visit there all the time. You know me, but for sort of living there, I can't do it.
No.
Between the cost
Well,
and
and
everything
I mean,
else,
look,
no.
sheer dollars and cents, man. I got a way bigger network in San Diego than I do in Los Angeles. Not to say that I don't have people in LA, but like I just know a lot more people in San Diego. And so, finding a place economically in an area that I want to live and everything, it was just a whole lot easier to execute down here.
Is the same still doing the same work and stuff or no?
Oh yeah, no. I'm still, obviously because I work remote, so I'm still in the advocacy space working for HAC, the Haitian American Caucus. We've
Right.
got a number of initiatives running in the tri-state area for the Haitian diaspora
Right.
and anyone who could benefit from our programs as well. And then we're working on a number of different initiatives for Haiti as well. Provided of course that we can physically access them, because that's a huge challenge for us. As we talk about, we sort of get into the issues and everything. I would be remiss if I didn't highlight, there's so much going on, and your news feeds are going to be really, really inundated right now. And it's at these times when places like Haiti get forgotten
Yeah,
and get ignored.
of course.
And we are right into the thick now of hurricane season. Haiti has not recovered yet from the earthquake last summer and the subsequent storms that followed. There's still an incredible amount of crime, kidnapping, civil unrest, and murder occurring in the streets.
And
It
corruption.
was very localized to Port-au-Prince. And it has very much spread to, Cap-Haïtien and Lacaille and other departments that are not typically as affected as say Port-au-Prince. And
Right.
so all of these things are happening and putting us in a position where we are either unable or almost it's nearly impossible to send teams to Haiti. And even like our executive director of our facility down there, he's Haitian American, has more or less lived in Haiti 9 months out of the year for the last 12 years. And even he has to basically sneak in under cover of darkness, never post pictures from there while he's there. Like he waits
Wow.
till he gets back to New
Wow.
York to post pictures of his exploits in Haiti, because
That. Yeah.
you know, it's gotten so desperate. You know, when we talk about like kidnappings and stuff, like, yes, you have the gangs engaged in their fuckery that is, you know, the same organized crime that exists in every corner of the world, you know, kidnapping and murdering their enemies and whatnot. But this is a different thing in Haiti specific. It's more, these are people who are incredibly poor, who are simply desperate to get their hands on any money at all. And so if anybody that they see appears to be wealthier than they, you are at risk of being kidnapped. It
Yeah.
happened to my aunt after the earthquake in 2010. She was she lived in Jacmel, and she was out shopping, and you know, 80 years old at the time, and she got swooped up at the grocery store, and fortunately she was returned like a week and a half later.
Thank
because
God.
it was one of those situations where this was not organized crime taking out one of their enemies. This was just people trying to get enough money for food and medicine, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, it fortunately, you know, she came home with a few bumps and bruises, and that was about it. But that's, you know, really what we're talking about. And it's, to me, less an indictment of, quote unquote criminals, which is where a lot of us, particularly as Americans, would go. But really more an indictment on, global leaders for allowing Haiti to descend into this kind of deprivation and, you know, starvation, lack of service.
And I imagine that even before this, COVID made it even harder to do anything worthy of transfer.
Oh no, COVID was an absolute disaster for the Haitian people. You know, you know, a big part of that was that President Moise, the president who was assassinated in June of last year, July of last year, excuse me. President Moise, for very good reasons, didn't trust the West and wouldn't allow the importation of any vaccines once they started becoming available and being offered to the Haitian government. So even at the outset of vaccine availability, Haitians weren't receiving them, even Haitians who could, and that has continued. So, you know, Haiti lags far behind the rest of the world in terms of vaccine penetration within the populace.
That's not a surprise at all.
No, of course not.
Not a surprise.
No, that should surprise no one. And you know, look, Haiti's not the only Caribbean nation that's going to lag behind the white world in terms of seeing those kind of results and outcomes. But again, you know, colonialism is a motherfucker.
Tell me about it. So yeah, so we, you know, discuss obviously that's going on. Obviously, the big story the last 4 or 5 days here in the States has been the official overturning of Roe v. Wade that happened last Friday.
Yeah.
Lots of opinions across the boards. Obviously, you know, most people don't agree with it, of course. There's people on my timeline that do agree with it, and you know, obviously I'm having discussions in private with them about, you know, their opinions on it and my opinions on it and all that. It's been very cordial for the most part, but man, I'll tell you my
if you're
experience.
under 70 and you support Roe v. Wade, you need to just open a fucking history book or talk to, you know, look at the testimony of doctors and nurses who practiced in a pre-Roe world.
Let me just say this quick though, Mark. I'll tell you, like, and I'll let you elaborate on this one. The reaction in my household is my wife. My wife is just, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen more emotional about a political issue than this one, and she is beyond herself about what happened on Friday.
No, I was talking to a lot of my activist friends about this, and you know, look, we can roll our eyes and be like, okay, well, you know, you're kind of late, but thanks for coming. But the number of my, as we put it, quote unquote, like normie friends who hit me up on Friday and were like, yo, I'm ready to hit the streets. What do I do? Where do I go? Take me with you. You know? And so, like, again, my activist friends and I can quietly sort of have a petty laugh to ourselves about, like, well, where y'all been the last 2 years? We've been in these streets.
Should try the last 6 years. Yeah.
Yeah. But me personally, the last 4.
Right.
Yeah, you know, it started with Bernie and stuff in 2016, but I wouldn't really call that activism in any way. That was
no, but I would say.
But I started attending protests in 2018, and then it was like a 3-day-a-week thing.
I'm talking about the voting, more so the voting, like, because obviously what happened in 2016 set the stage for what we have now.
Yeah. But no, I've been really impressed by the number of people that are pissed and that are not taking this lying down. But I think it's really important to note that a few different things. As a non-uterus haver, I want to speak to a couple of different facets of this than maybe some of the more obvious things that I'm going to allow women to people with uteruses to voice their own concerns about. I do want to invite everyone to talk about this conversation not as a women's issue, but as a reproductive issue,
Right.
because not everyone who has the reproductive parts affected by this are women. And I think it is important, especially right now with what the right wing in this country, particularly the ultra right wing in this country, are looking to do to our LGBTQ neighbors and friends and family members. It's really important at this time that we do not erase the existence and needs of trans people, and to narrow this to a women's issue eliminates the dogs in this fight that our non-binary and trans friends have. So I wanna mention that first, but also that this is a much bigger thing than abortion. It's not just simply, do you support killing babies or do you support women's rights? It's not that. It's IVF. It's a whole array of fertility services. You're already starting to see posts circulating the internet of doctors in states with trigger laws having, texting attorneys while people are experiencing difficult life-threatening pregnancies because they don't feel legally safe to perform a life-saving procedure. So this is so much simpler than this is so much more complicated and far-reaching than an unwanted pregnancy. And the way that people on the right and the way that people who oppose choice categorize this and are reductive about all the elements, I think is just really disgusting and inhumane.
A lot of it too, Mark. Well, a lot of it too also the right.
It ignores the deaths of thousands of people in this
Right.
country where we have the highest
Of
maternal
course.
mortality rate, exponentially higher for Black and brown women.
But that's kind of the problem, though. Like, a lot of people on the right they look at it as a simple black and white. Okay, baby's dead. Baby's dead. That is it. It's not. It's as simple as that for them. They don't see the other broader argument in this whole thing.
And the really the salt in the wound part of it is they don't want to hear it. They're not open. The right wing media vortex, politicians and messaging of the party has been so anchored in confusion, misinformation, and disinformation and outright lying the last 7 years now. I mean, it was ugly.
Well, longer.
It's always been ugly. I mean, the right wing in this country has always been, regardless of which party they occupy or what fucking color their ties are. The right wing of this country has always been the party of silencing Black, Indigenous, immigrant, women, whatever. Whether it was Irish and Italians before they got adopted into whiteness, or indigenous conquest, Mark, it's all the same shit.
It's not just political though, too. Also, for someone like myself who was raised in a church, it's literally in the church itself. They literally it's so simple to them. There's no broader conversation about this.
Well,
it's that killing babies are bad, and that is it. Done. And
I love you for taking us there, because you just helped me to illustrate a further point about the right wing in this country and what happened to the evangelical community in this country over the course of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Robert Evans on Behind the Bastards does a great podcast about more or less the corporatization of Christianity in America, and sort of this intertwining between the political right wing, the financial right wing, and the evangelical right wing. And abortion, the crusade against choice and abortion has a lot to do with that. And I'm not going to discount the Catholic Church in this, but this is sort of a uniquely American thing, so I don't want to, I kind of want to keep it focused. Nowhere in the New Testament, nowhere do they talk really in the Bible about life beginning at conception. Do they talk about abortion? Because, simply put, the writers of the Gospels could never have conceived of abortion. And even our sort of cousins in monotheism, in Judaism, it's their longstanding practice that like abortion itself is not necessarily, and I'm paraphrasing an interview, so please forgive me. I'm not by any means
No problem. No problem.
A rabbinic scholar or anything like that. I'm paraphrasing what I heard a Jewish woman say in an interview. But more or less that while abortion itself is not necessarily encouraged and whatnot, the overarching guidance is to preserve the life of the mother, because that's the person, so that sort of dictates their stance on choice. And the last thing I'll say, if the American evangelical community wants a voice so fucking badly in politics, pay taxes.
Oh, I've been saying for years. You haven't seen it all you want. Just pay your taxes.
You want more than a vote? Pay fucking taxes.
Couldn't agree more.
Lobby all you want, but as long as you're living there tax free, shut the fuck up. Like you don't want to go to school, you don't want to learn, you don't want to take science class, you don't want to believe that Darwin ever existed. Okay, fine by me.
Yeah, just pay taxes.
You don't get to lobby. Simple as that.
So here's the thing I want. Here's the thing I want to understand too, no more than anything else. The political perspective of this. Okay, so we know that the data is true. We know that this data has been true for a long time. That close to 3/4 of this country disagrees with overturning this law. Okay, that includes Republicans.
Yeah, in some way, shape, or form, something like 65% of them.
More than that, I heard a number close to 70-75%. And
it's like at least they support choice in some form.
Right,
like,
right. Right.
What they're proposing right now ain't it is the point.
Right. So that means, okay. So I'm the Republican Party. I'm not saying I am. I'm saying, so the data's there. Okay. This is not a winning issue at the ballot box. So why is the GOP still pushing this down people's throats, knowing that people, including people in their own party, are against this?
I can't quite figure out if this is the siloed tone deafness that comes with being old, rich, white, and self-segregated in America, if it is favors that they've owed, deals with various devils that they've made. But, like, it honestly makes no sense to me, because I hear hard-charging, anti-vax, anti-mask, would string up fucking Fauci if they could, Republicans go that are under 40 go, what are you guys doing? Like,
yeah,
nobody wants this. Nobody but our grandmothers asked for this. Like, what the hell? Like, I'm thinking of one friend in particular whose like Instagram stories frequently drive me up the damn wall with like just all of it, the QAnon of it all, and everything. I mean,
oh God,
he's not a QAnon crazy, but I mean, it's some pretty far right shit. And even he screenshotted a message of himself DMing another like right-wing media person who had just was a guy under 50 who had just apparently gone on a thrown himself a ticker tape parade applauding the Supreme Court for this. And a friend of mine was like, "Don't you realize this probably just fucked us at the midterms?" Like, because this isn't going to win new voters. Like, Fox News just released a story today about how the GOP has seen 1 million new registrations. And I'm like, and the friend that sent it to me, my comment to him was, yeah, that probably has more to do with messaging around Joe Biden than around Roe. A, because of the age of the polling, and B, because all those 1 million people that signed up, 70% of them probably aren't going to vote the way that the GOP wants them to now because of this.
Well,
they're just not going to show up.
You see that right there, though, is where I am a bit speculative, though. A bit. Let me tell you why. If we didn't have inflation and $6 in gas right now going on, I would say, yeah, I could see Democrats really this being the bat signal between this the gun issue now with the tragedies in the schools and the restaurant in the grocery store. I can see that being back. As you know, Mark, and for years in this podcast we've said Democrats do not do well in midterms unless there's something they have to fight. The reason in 2018 they did so well in the midterms is because it was Donald Trump.
It was a referendum on Trump.
Right. So the talking points the last year and a half has been this, and you and I agree on this too. Prior to this, the leak, prior to the violence with the guns recently, that Democrats were on the verge of getting fucking slaughtered in November.
Still are.
And they're probably still getting slaughtered in November.
My hope in this, my larger anarcho-communist hope in all of this, kidding, but not really. No, my hope is that this helps to expedite the death of neoliberalism in this country, and hopefully in time to beat back this creeping neo-fascism that we have. Not creeping anymore.
So you're thinking long game here.
I want
in the same way Republicans did.
I want to see Joe Biden get primaried. You know what I mean? I want to see. This is not making a commentary on specific issues or anything, but I want to see more of what AOC did to that congressman that she unseated.
Well,
because at the end of the day, people talk about the cowardice of the Democrats or their spinelessness or their inability to act. No, wake the fuck up. It's classism. There's rich people banding together.
Yeah, but
at the end of the day, that's what they're going to do.
But in the meantime,
most of the prominent Democrats, like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, are rich as hell. And so they're going to do shit that benefits other rich people before they do shit that benefits poor people. And it really doesn't have anything to do with right or left.
Right. And I wish people right and left understood that.
Of course, we can kind of use that as a pivot point as we work our way into the inflation conversation and all of the misinformation being peddled around that. But I still think the Democrats are up shit's creek, frankly, because they're a bunch of rich old white people overwhelmingly.
Which now begs the question.
Rich old white people that are in trouble in America, and whose reckoning sort of needs to come.
Which now begs the question.
Because right now we are experiencing income inequality that is now worse than it was during the 1890s in the Gilded Age.
Right, that's very true. Which now begs the question, Mark, if the slaughter does happen, because we keep hearing that Joe Biden intends to run for re-election at age 82, but again, these midterms, you would think these midterms will actually answer that puzzle for the Democrats in how to approach 2024. They can't possibly be that stupid and put Joe Biden for re-election, can they?
I think there's a lot more disunity in the Democratic camp than is illustrated on television or in newspapers.
Oh, I agree with that.
And I think the chasm between the progressive, dare I say, almost leftist, contingent in the caucus compared to the old guard, is much wider than most people realize. There are these handful of like cornerstone issues that we can all agree upon and things like that because they've been part of the Democratic platform for 50 years.
Yeah.
But like, as a whole, I want to see the squad turn on the leadership. I mean, that's what I'm rooting for. I want to see Bernie unzip himself and a 45-year-old version step out ready to just torch Joe Biden on the campaign trail. Something.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, let's be honest. Yes, we all held our noses and voted for Joe Biden, those of us that did. And he got force-fed Bernie's platform more or less in the same way that Hillary did, but he hasn't acted upon it in any way, shape, or form, not meaningfully.
Is it possible, Mark, that it might require for Democrats to get the message across the board that Republicans actually not just slaughter them in 2020, in November, but also in 2024, where this will be the first time in 34 years a Republican candidate for president actually wins an election in a landslide to where Democrats have no choice but to look inward and to shake things up?
I would find that a whole lot more interesting and less concerning 35, 40 years ago. But because of the extreme, gaslighting of white supremacy, political violence, domestic terrorism, gun violence, all these different things that are so endemic to the far right. And the way that Donald Trump specifically sort of transformed the Republican Party into this, you know, welcoming party of fascists, fact deniers, and generally crazy people.
Yeah.
Your Matt Gaetzes and Marjorie Taylor Greenes and Lauren Boeberts, and the list goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
The political discourse in this country has become violent and dangerous, and the most extreme members of this party, including members of Congress, right now are going on podcasts talking about putting trans kids and their parents in fucking concentration camps. So, no. I mean, like, again, yes, in a vacuum, if we could say that the temperature was a little more like 30, 40 years ago, okay, that might be an interesting outcome. But
now it's too risky.
It's objectively dangerous, and I think what's different now in as any election you and I have ever been old enough to talk about is that this is one of those seasons that we've had maybe a half a dozen times in our history where American democracy is on the brink of collapse. For our friends in the medical field, like, America's in VTAC, y'all. Like, this is a shockable rhythm, but we are in serious fucking trouble. And this is one of those time periods where, those of us who are in our 30s and 40s have never really experienced one of those pivotal moments in American history. And we wonder what we would have done in the event that American democracy was teetering on the edge. Well, we're teetering, y'all. Get in the fucking game.
Yeah, what you're saying is basically that as much as you can't stand the Democratic Party right now, as they exist presently, it's too risky to let.
They're at least not. They're at least not welcoming of neo-Nazis, fascists, right-wing militias.
That's kind of how I feel too. Also,
police and military
I tell my friends
personnel.
all the time, like. I tell my friends all the time too. Also, like you think I like voting for these Democrats? I don't like Joe Biden. I don't like Hillary Clinton. I am voting. Like, I'll say it again. We said this in the podcast 2016. You said 2 years ago during the election. I am voting against Donald Trump. That's why I voted in those two elections.
Yeah, well,
I vote against the guy, not for someone.
A lot of my black friends have been very honest about this, and they're like, "How's it feel, white people? We've been voting this way since we got the vote. Like, it's always been holding our noses. Four exceptions,
right? Because most and Mark, let's be real here. It's a little insight, and you probably know this now as you've been doing activism. Most blacks, I mean, it's maybe changing now with the with the generation below me now, but I know with my generation, maybe and a little older, most blacks, most African Americans are actually more moderate.
I think that probably, I would think the corollary there probably has to do more with income.
Right. Well, my point is like
the offset for income would be cultural Christianity, because Christianity does tend to pull people into
exactly. A lot of
impoverished
church
people into voting against their own interests. A lot
of exactly. Well, that's part of it too. That's why I was asking you back a couple of years ago. I never understood the whole what was the disconnect between Bernie Sanders and the black vote. I never understood that. I still don't, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is. Let me say this much also too, and it's gonna sound obviously weird to say this though, but if you are someone that is extremely happy about what happened on Friday, Donald Trump just became your Michael Jordan of presidents.
Yeah.
Here's what the Devils do. Donald Trump got 3 in just 4 years of as president, got 3 picks in there, and set the stage for this.
Yeah, I don't know the legality or constitutionality of all this, but to me, if a president engaged in sedition against the nation and stole 3 appointments to the Supreme Court that have produced landmark shifts in legal judicial policy that will affect the lives of millions of Americans for potentially a century to come.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's outside the realm of reason that it should be, the legal questions need to be explored that, look, if Merrick Garland's going to bring sedition charges against the president, and it's very clear to all of us that everything that was ever said about him in both impeachment hearings and throughout his presidency was dead on and worse.
He pulls picks.
You know, should these picks be allowed to stand? Should these people
That will
be
never
allowed on
happen.
the Supreme Court?
You may have.
I know.
You'll
know.
get support. You'll get some support for that, but you know what though? The Democrats are so weak they wouldn't do it anyway.
Well, of course, and just the fact that, I mean, even forgetting Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett for a minute, but like Clarence Thomas and Brett Kavanaugh have serious conflicts of their character and of their criminality. And several of these decisions, it's becoming clear Clarence Thomas should have recused himself from.
Oh, well,
so now you are talking about questions of judicial impeachment that are very legitimate. And if you can at least get this back to a 5-4 court, you might be able to, sort of turn the ship around on some of this crap. But no, I think Thomas, Barrett, Kavanaugh, and Gorsuch, not one of them deserves to be sitting on the bench. And my only thought of remedy around this that is reasonable and attainable is court expansion. But Joe Biden has already come out and said point blank, he's not open to that or the filibuster.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was going to say, I'm typically not really someone that's really for that, although there's no constitutional thing that says that you can't do that. But at this point,
you've done it twice. Court started with
what does it end, though?
Then went to 7, then went to 9. We've expanded the court twice.
See, Joe Biden represents. Okay, excuse my language here. This is why Democrats are pussies.
I think.
Right there.
I'm pretty sure it was twice. We've expanded the court at least once, and I'm pretty sure it was twice.
Was it Democrats or was it Republicans that did that?
I couldn't do it. I can barely remember if it happened once or twice. I can't tell you who was in charge of overseeing
that said,
the project.
I think some Democrats, like Joe Biden and those leaders with Democrats, I don't think they understand what's going on in this world. I think they look at everything as like,
of what's going.
We'll figure it out. No big deal. We'll work on deals behind the scenes. And no.
I think specific to the president, not that he doesn't get it. He doesn't agree. He agrees more with the Republicans in his heart than he does with the base of the party. But unlike somebody who could be argued was great for this, like President Johnson, who said the N-word in private and signed the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Act because he knew the nation needed it, even though it conflicted with his own personal beliefs.
Correct.
If Joe Biden doesn't even have that most basic modicum of courage and understanding or willingness to represent the people and dissociate his humanity and his personal views from the office, motherfuck, what? Dude, I'm getting my Belgian passport and moving to Europe.
My wife was out here too.
I hate it here is peaking so bad today, and we haven't even gotten into a couple of the other reasons why.
Let me ask you this though: like, if let's say the Democrats do get slaughtered in November, and the Democrats wake up and say, "Hey, Joe Biden, you're not running anymore," who do you put up?
I don't know the answer to that question, and I would frankly rather it be somebody whose name we don't know yet, rather than bring it back to basketball, like promote Sam Cassell, not keep recycling Mike D'Antoni.
Right, exactly. Someone is not. Someone's not on the radar. Someone is not part of the.
Give Darvin Ham the job, not
Jesus.
a Van Gundy. Like,
Zach the Degenerate on this podcast had an assistant.
President Obama came out of relative obscurity as a junior senator in the 2004 DNC and as the keynote, and people started saying then that was the next president of the United States. Obviously, such shoo-in did not emerge in the 2020 election, so maybe that person hasn't been found yet. but I would like it to be not a man, and not white. For two, and if they're not somebody who's being called a communist 6 times a week on MSNBC by even the conservatives that they bring in, like, you're not progressive enough, because we need some shit that's going to be called communism for the next 50 years until history proves it otherwise.
Right. I was going to say a little while ago, my
Which, by
friend
the way, pretty much every landmark policy since the inception of the understanding of what communism is, pretty much every landmark social policy has been called communism. So,
right. I was going to say real quick.
The WPA and the New Deal, like, people were calling Roosevelt a Bolshevik, guys. Like,
right. Yeah, seriously. Not everything is as it seems. No,
not trying to touch Mitch McConnell's Social Security, you know?
Yeah. Zach the Degenerate on this podcast had said, he had mentioned Mo Rocca. Not Mo Rocca, the actor, but I think he's a junior senator or something like that in Louisiana, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Something Mo Rocca. Yeah. He's actually was featured on the Swamp actually on HBO, I think, a year ago.
Okay.
So he suggested him actually as someone that could probably.
I don't know enough about the depth of the Democratic bench and the breakdown, district to district, how progressive people are and what all their voting records are. I can barely keep up with Southern California and the tri-state area.
Yeah. And
I still would not call myself an expert at, Albany and New York, but no, I think it needs to be somebody who comes out of relative obscurity with an exceptionally progressive platform that actually speaks to the needs of people and the general lack of humanity that exists in government today on both sides of the aisle.
Right.
Otherwise, that person because it's the only way you're going to overcome the DNC primary machine, as Gabby Wasserman Schultz and Bernie Sanders taught us in 2016, is with an insurmountable groundswell of grassroots support.
Yeah.
It just needs to be the thing that no ad buys or lobbying can overcome.
Right. Totally agree with you on that one. Back to the drawing board, in other words.
Yeah. Somebody just needs to show up that's awesome.
Yeah. Like Obama was. Obama was that grassroots guy. So,
and look, I have no shortage of criticisms about President Obama as I have moved further left on the political scale. But yeah, that's exactly what the fuck we need.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that kind of energy.
Right. Here's my question to you now.
Particularly for somebody though who's not as inclined to drone strike children.
Right. Exactly. Here's a question I have for you.
Makes a little less money for Raytheon.
Here's a question I have for you, real quick. Is someone that's pretty good with numbers and stuff. Who's to blame for inflation?
It's multifaceted.
Okay.
Capitalism and its bootlickers. A regulatory policy environment, right and left, because they're classist, that refuses to rein in corporations as Adam Smith prescribed in The Wealth of Nations. We'll get to that. And corporations for being what they are. So let's just go right at the obvious one, gas. Okay. And inflation. When we talk about inflation in most conversations at barbecues and on local news, we are not appropriately using the term. And I am not even qualified to be a TA in a first or second year economics class, so I'm not going to try to sit here and justify the actual definition. But what I will say is that we fucking use it wrong. And we don't, and the overwhelming majority of us, myself included, don't really understand what inflation is. And it's just an element to what's happening. The simple truth is that the billionaire class in the world and the corporations of this planet have been raping and pillaging our pocketbooks since 2020, when some very legitimate market conditions affected supply chains and pricing. But when they saw how much money they could make by juicing scarcity and dialing back supply because of monopolies and because of lobbying and because of them having all the politicians in their pocket, once the shit grew out of control, Nobody did anything about it. And so what you've seen is something like, I forget what the exact numbers are, but so don't quote me on this, but whatever the figure is, it's like the working class of the world in the United States has lost like $2.3 trillion since 2020. And the billionaire class has directly gained $2.1 trillion since 2020. Put it into perspective a little further. Elon Musk was worth $27 billion at the outset of the pandemic, which is already an ungodly sum of money that very few people on earth even conceive to spend, unless all you did was buy professional sports teams, and most of them were soccer teams. Like, and even then, the things you're buying are probably going to refill the coffer faster than you can spend it. So that's an ungodly sum of money. He has magnified his wealth 10 times over, for one. And for two, a lot of that wealth is really arbitrary. It doesn't exist because it's complicated valuations that are done in the securities markets, and they're not representative of actual cash on hand and things like that. It's leveraging things against other things that are 6 times leveraged over. And again, it's really complicated finance stuff that people use to basically say they have way more fucking money than they do. But people are starving and people are unable to buy baby formula as a result, you know? And as Adam Smith wrote in The Wealth of Nations, like, capitalism and corporations will overrun the working class and they will gobble them up because profit has no ethics and corporations have no ethics. Their adherence is to their bottom line and to nothing else. And every corporation in history that's ever had to be regulated has had to be dragged kicking and screaming into a whole bunch of things that we consider really standard, like seatbelts and airbags. And so I'm really tired of people who make 110 grand a year telling us how capitalism and the market and corporations will save us, because they're fucking killing us. They're killing our planet and they're killing the people.
How are they going to save us? What's the defense on that? I don't understand that.
The only thing to do is to regulate. I mean, it's to clamp down and regulate these companies the way that most of the world does.
But those same idiots want to deregulate, though.
Well, no, I know that's the problem, is because we have this, we are in this vicious cycle where corporations have become so ingratiated into the political process and lawmaking process that it seems that it's grown out of control. But what I'm saying is we need to get out in the streets. When we talk about having general strikes, let's talk about what that really means. That means we don't buy Target, Amazon, Walmart. We don't go to those places. We do the hard thing. We find the small business. We find the black-owned business. We find the immigrant business. And we consciously dedicate our dollars to those things and stop bowing to convenience. It's the only way it's going to happen. So, yeah, it's hard.
No, I agree with you.
And you could sit here and tell me I'm pie in the sky full of shit. But it's the only thing that's going to work. And in places where it has been executed, it has worked. So it's either regulation or us hitting them on their balance sheets. It's the only thing that's going to move the needle.
Why is the president so confident we're not going to go to a recession when the signs are there?
Because he's stupid.
He's a fucking idiot. Why would he fucking say that? Like, why would he say that? Like, don't say. Oh,
I mean, let's be honest. Let's remove from the fact that Joseph Robinette Biden currently holds the office of the president, and let's just talk about the way he talks the last 40 or so years. Has he ever said things that made him sound overly smart? Has he ever said things that make people really rally up? Took 3 swings at the presidency before he did it, and the only way he got in was because we had to vote against, like, he was running against stupid Hitler. Like,
stupid Hitler. Wow.
Like, that's what we're talking about here. So, yeah, it's totally on brand to me that Joe Biden would say something so abjectly stupid and disconnected from reality.
There's no
because
way.
Most of the shit that comes out of his mouth
Mark,
is completely disconnected from reality. And even his win in 2020 was, frankly, If Jim Clyburn hadn't pushed him over the damn finish line in South Carolina, his campaign was over.
There is no way this guy should be up for re-election in 2 years. There's no way.
He shouldn't have been up for election 2 years ago.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have been up for election 14 years ago.
And Mark, this is the same party. This is the same party that preaches fucking diversity. He had a black man. He had 25 picks. A black man. He had an Asian. He had
we got like 6 women that wear bonnets to bed. What
women
fucking do? Like,
we
come
have
on.
women,
There's no diversity in the Democratic
and
Party.
we picked the fucking old white guy again? What are we
And
doing?
not only that, it's because even within, and this is going to sound absurd coming out of a white person's mouth, but like, even to the degree that a lot of that we do have diversity in the Capitol in Washington, a lot of it is still not class diversity.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about people who may check certain boxes on an EEOC worksheet, they don't necessarily have, and I don't want to impugn anyone's cultural connection or any of that, but I'm just simply talking about money makes people forget.
Yep.
And if you grew up with money, that's not to say that you didn't experience racism or sexism or xenophobia or transphobia or homophobia or any of the other protected classes to which you might belong. I'm just saying that there's a big part of the most relevant part of this conversation right now. It's going to ultimately be a blind spot to you.
Yep. Have you been following the January 6 hearings?
I didn't watch every single one, but I have been following all of it pretty closely. I mean, you and I have obviously, beaten this conversation to death before, during, and after. So a lot of it is more or less confirming things I knew. Watching the January 6 hearings is like watching the Playboy documentary. Sure, it's all shocking and new, information, but like, really, is it any of it all that surprising? But that said, today's hearing, the 6th hearing with Cassidy Hutchinson, the aide to Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, dude, that was fucking gnarly.
They were calling that. Who's the guy from Watergate? John, the guy that the whistleblower for Watergate. John, I forgot his name, but they were comparing that to her, to what he did.
Wait, are you talking about like Mark Felt, the one
no,
who deep throat from
no,
the FBI,
no.
or the like Nixon aide who?
John,
I know who you're talking about. I've seen that like Senate committee hearing testimony video in like high school and stuff. I know what you're talking about.
I'll tell you right now. John Dean.
Thank you. John Dean
was the guy that pretty much put the lid off Watergate.
Yeah, exactly. It had big John Dean energy for sure. And I guess without, sitting there picking apart the things that all of us are going to see on 9 different Twitter pages tonight anyway, for those of, for the people who would listen to this particular episode in your audience.
Right.
My big takeaway from all of the hearings, and particularly today's, is that if Merrick Garland has not already begun the process of investigating, indicting, trying, convicting, and imprisoning President Trump, Rudy Giuliani, Eastman, and at the very least, American democracy is dead.
I have no faith in that.
It has died. And you can start the irreversible clock to us getting some kind of like neo-fascistic dictator as president.
I'm gonna say it again. Donald Trump is Teflon, dude. Sorry.
Well, maybe he'll expire prior to, accountability, and he'll get to exit clean or something. But yeah, I really think if the Justice Department can sit back with a Democratic AG and a Democratic president and all of this, if we get some like Gerald Ford national unity bullshit, America's done. Like effectively, like American, like all the things that we cynically joke about our votes not counting and democracy being horseshit and all that
Right.
will be true.
All this is disgruntling people not to want to vote anymore. All it's doing.
Yeah, I mean turnout is well, and this is how you end up with dictators, because this is how democracy dies.
You suppress turnout,
Because
like 2016.
and how republics die, because turnout among your more casual, moderate voters starts to dip, and only crazy people, activists, and academics are participating in the political process. So you're just going to continue boiling down to these sort of more concentrated forms of whatever argument is being made. And that's
Right.
what opens the door to authoritarianism, because that's the shit that sparks civil wars.
Read a book, folks. Read a book. Read a book. It's out there.
I strongly advise every single person who would be listening to this episode, because if you are, you're a nerd like us.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't already, need to listen to the mini series on Behind the Bastards that Robert Evans did with Jason Petty, prop the Inside the Insurrections. He carefully picks apart sort of some of the overlaps or he tells the story of a bunch of different insurrections within republics that were very similar to what took place at the Capitol on January 6th. And
Right.
what Americans really need to understand is we got some serious, like, pre-Franco Spanish shit going on, some serious Weimar Republic shit going on in this country. And the moderate Democrats will sell us out to the far right in the interest of capital if we're not careful. Because it's what's happened every single time that a republic has fallen and given way to authoritarianism.
Yep. Well, we'll see how it plays out. That's good. Let's cheer up the conversation a little bit now. The Lakers. We haven't talked basketball. Obviously, you had a rough year.
I was going to say we're cheering up the conversation by talking about the Lakers.
Yeah. Imagine that, right? Are you glad the Kyrie? Well, for now, the Kyrie thing's not happening.
I was going to say, apparently now it actually opens the door to it being more likely that he's traded, because it's not a sign-in trade or something. Woj is killing me.
There's no, but this is the thing. There's no way this trade happens. That's Russ. You get Russ off the books.
Yeah, because I mean, Brooklyn's not. I mean, really, the only trade that you could do is, Russ for Kyrie and another piece, and it's like,
no,
I'm not doing that.
You're going to take that. You need a third team in
together.
there. You need a third team in there. Get a third team in there.
I liked and was terrified of you getting Kyrie.
The Heat?
Because, yeah.
Oh, no. There's no way around. From what I understand, what I'm hearing, that he had no interest in Kyrie.
Oh, okay. See, I was literally about to turn the corner into a little Riley Spo leadership might just be the sort of thing that gets Kyrie straightened out from a business standpoint.
What they wanted was KD.
Was like, no fucking way are we bringing shit show to Miami.
What Riley wanted was KD. He was waiting for the story to play out. Kyrie leaves Brooklyn. KD requests a trade, and then Pat Riley swoops in there and says, "Hey, come down this way."
Well, he certainly has experience with stealing forward guards.
Yeah, and centers too sometimes.
Yeah.
Remember Shaq?
Yeah. Painfully so.
Yeah.
It's a mess, and I think the Lakers are going to be really bad next year.
Oh, wow.
Really, really bad next year.
I've known you 10 years, okay? Every single year I've taught Lakers, even when they struggle, you're always optimistic to some degree.
Come on, no.
This is the first time you really said...
In the post-Kobe, pre-LeBron dark ages, I was very realistic and self-deprecating. Come on. I gave as much hope as I possibly could to the kids who have gone on and had very nice careers.
I have never heard you snap call a bad year coming season just like that. Boom.
Oh, yeah.
Not even a wink of maybe we can do this. They say healthy. I think
unless LeBron figures out how to clone his 40-year-old ass 4 times over. we're fucked.
But that's it though. The problem is not LeBron. The problem is Anthony Davis.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's it. If he can clone himself 3-4 times, we're fine.
If AD can fucking stay healthy, then yeah, we got a conversation here. But
no, AD's back doesn't work, and we don't have a real big man. We don't have a point guard. We don't have consistent perimeter defense.
It's a bad roster outside of three.
We don't have leadership in the locker room. We don't have Jared Dudley's mind.
It's a disjointed roster too.
We don't have any of the things that win championships besides LeBron James and the name Lakers.
Yeah. And you have the entire conference right now working against you.
Dude, the Western Conference is filthy too. You know? Clippers are looking good as long as they can stay healthy. Obviously, the Warriors are back and then some.
Yep. Denver will be back next year.
Luka Doncic is the best player on the floor. You know.
Hi Memphis.
65 games out of the year.
Hi Memphis. I mean, hi Memphis also.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Minnesota's coming.
Memphis is the one that I think is going to be the really good team that gets hit the hardest this year. I think we're going to see, not to say that John and the kids aren't amazing.
Regression. A little regression to the mean.
Well, yeah, there's going to be some regression. Is that, they're going to get a little figured out. They're going to
I can see that.
Start, you know, Draymond Green was actually just talking about this on the Old Man and the Three with JJ Redick.
Oh yeah,
he was saying
I listen to that when I'm off this podcast. I listen to that episode.
Okay, well, he was just talking about this, about how, he loves Memphis and their obliviousness to their circumstances probably worked in their favor this year, but it won't continue to do so because they'll start to realize, while they were kind of too young and stupid to realize the importance of these moments, so they were able to just sort of relax and play. The gravity of these moments will start to settle in, and they'll either crumble or they'll turn a corner and become champions. That's for their journey. That's them and their journey to sort out, you know. But they are going to start to mentally feel that pressure, and teams are going to have them more figured out. And Golden State has gotten a lot better, and conceivably Clay's going to play a whole lot more this season than he did the season that just ended. You know, Boston's going to be as hungry as all hell. Miami is just never to be discounted as they've got everyone they need.
Right.
Giannis is only getting better.
Milwaukee's a problem.
Yeah. The league is deep as shit, and the Western Conference deeper still. So
parity is back, bro. It's taking a long time, but parity is back, man.
Unless Rob Pelinka has 11 aces up his sleeve that no one in Los Angeles has heard on radio, Twitter, newspaper, television yet. We're pretty well screwed for next year.
Wow, Marc Francois down the Lakers this year. Wow.
Yeah, no, it's not pretty. It's not pretty. LeBron's just sitting there handicapping who's drafting Bronny at this point, so he can figure out where he's going next.
Yeah, I'm just rooting for Westbrook. Hope he does well this next year.
I hope for their sake it's the Warriors. Honestly, I want the Warriors to find a way to draft Bronny, and for Steph and LeBron to play together, and for it to be an absolute foregone conclusion on the day that LeBron signs that they about won the championship, and I will still tune into every game and root for them like they were my team, because it will be awesome to watch.
Speaking of Steph Curry, you mentioned him. Now with his finals now, is he officially top 10 all time now for you?
Yeah, he's moving up to the top 5 real quick.
Ooh, wow.
He's already, I'm not holding this position, but I'm not going to fight you very hard if you told me that Steph Curry was the best point guard of all time, or that he will retire as the best point guard of all time. I might still put Magic higher on my GOAT rankings.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about that before. I've got Kareem as the best basketball player of all time, but Mike's still my GOAT, you know? But yeah, if you wanted to make the argument that Steph Curry was the best point guard of all time right now, I'm not going to fight you very hard on that. I'm not going to make a very fervent case for Magic on that.
I will say this much. I said this on the podcast months ago.
He knocked your lovable loser that you've always ridden for, Isaiah Thomas. He knocked that man way down.
Yeah. He's past. I see that point now. He's past Zeke at this point now. That's not even a conversation. No. I said it about 2 months ago on the podcast before we got number 6, before we got the 4th ring. That I said this. I said that basically that I would still put Magic ahead of him still, even with the 4th ring. But I think the argument's getting closer than people give credit for.
Yeah, tie goes to Magic right now
Of
because
course.
he literally saved the NBA, and Steph Curry doesn't exist if not for Magic.
Right.
The NBA was pretty shitty in 1977, 78.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But Steph checks every
still,
box, though.
I think that's what I said. Is like Magic still has Steph beat on the GOAT rankings, but if you want to narrow it just to point guards, you can make a pretty solid case for Steph. Steph 1, Magic 2.
Zeke 3. So.
Yeah, I still think Zeke 3.
Yeah, 6-3. He got 2 rings. Beat Jordan, Magic, and Bird to win those rings. One more thing. Here we go. Cause I'm actually, this is the first time probably a couple of years I'm actually really engaged in baseball like this, and because the Mets are so good. Your Dodgers, man, hanging around though.
Yeah.
Where you at with that?
You know me, the last 5-10 years, I try not to get too emotional about anything, good, bad, or otherwise, before the All-Star break. Going to a lot more Padres games, obviously, now, and my favorite thing to remind them is, I've used this on a couple different fan bases in different circumstances, but somebody was busting my balls about the Padres and the Dodgers. Or they were giving me crap about Petco, and I said, yeah, Petco's a lot nicer than Dodger Stadium, and I love coming here, truthfully, but Dodger Stadium's going to be open in October, and it always is.
As good as the Mets have been this year, I'm very proud they've done, and they're doing this without the 2 best pitchers, obviously, this year, Scherzer and DeGrom. If you still ask me who wins the National League this year, I'm still saying the Dodgers.
I gotta think so. Kimbrel has not been, just penciled right in as a.
Wait, you don't think so? You say
slamming closer? No. I do. That's what I'm saying. I'm picking nits, to quote Bill Simmons. But no, like I said, Kimbrel has not been the door slamming closer that would make me a little more comfortable right now.
Right.
There are things that, there have been games or been moments where I'm like, oof, that wasn't good. But,
yeah,
the night, my sort of finger in the wind is always, what my MLB app alerts are saying. And they're saying I'm getting a whole lot more winning alerts and home run alerts than I'm getting, not top 10 and losing game alerts.
I will say it's starting to feel like 1988 all over again.
Huh?
I will say it's starting to feel like 1988 all over again. Dodgers, Mets, NLCS. I'd love to see it.
I mean, I won't count the Giants out before September 15th ever.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
Because they're soul crushing that way.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully none of my Bay Area people are listening.
And the Braves are playing well too. The Braves are on fire now. They're starting to get closer to us now.
Yeah,
in the division
they were.
now.
I thought they were going to suffer a lot more without Freddie Freeman, and they're looking really good.
Yeah.
And the National League is fairly open, but I still think it's the Dodgers and Mets, and the cliff to third is significant, at least as we stand right now. If the season ended today.
I'm just saying that as a longtime Met fan, I'm always skeptical. Always skeptical because
No. I mean, you guys could be 15 games ahead in first place in September, and you're still going to be pretty white knuckle. I'm not relaxing.
Yep.
I'm not getting excited. Put that champagne away if I see one balloon.
That's right. I'm totally with you on that. Exactly, buddy. Exactly. And that's where we're closing here. Mark, you going on vacation next week, right? Tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow.
Where you going?
Viva Mexico, baby.
Oh, nice. Nice. Just you or you and a couple friends?
No, I'm going with some friends.
Nice.
Just a few days to sneak away and recuperate after moving.
I need a vacay, man. Please think about me when you're out there. I need to get so bad, dude. Buddy.
I will send you pina colada wishes and authentic taco dreams.
Follow Mark on Twitter at Francois Mark. As glad to have back on the podcast as always, man. Does not make it another 6 months.
I'm sure we're gonna have a very busy summer of activism to discuss. So It's got
And the midterms.
it's a lot more unseasoned than it was in 2020, but it does have a lot of the heat. So it'll be exciting. It'll be a good summer to talk about on the streets, I think.
Yeah, exactly.